Welcome back to the broadcast. We get to that conversation of the day. It's pretty going to be much interesting. Of course, we address the issues that affect us directly as a people. And still on board is Honorable Anthony Konya. Is the member of County Assembly, Kiambu Township. Kiambu Township?
Yes, Kiambu Township.
I keep calling it.
Yes, Kiambu Township.
Yes, Kiambu Township.
Yes.
And also we have Honorable Tandaza Kasim Sawa, who's a member of Parliament, Matuga, all the way from Kwale. And lastly, Honorable Professor Peter Nyong'o joins us this morning all the way from Kisumu. He will be joining us via Skype as we expound on matters devolution and the BBI. So good to have you, gentlemen, once again. We kickstart the discussion, and I don't want it to start on a terrible note because we have a lot of sad things to discuss. First of all, Honorable Nyong'o, tell us something small about the Kusi Festival. Kisumu hosts Africa. What do we expect of that? Just briefly.
Well, the Kusi Ideas Festival is an innovation by the Nation Media Group, really, to discuss Africa's future in the context of our past. As you know, the idea of Kusi comes from the Kiswahili word kusini, which is related to the winds that used to blow between the Eastern African coast and the Asian subcontinent many years ago, called the monsoon winds. They're still there anyway. Now, these monsoon winds used to carry sailors from the Eastern African coast to the Indian subcontinent to carry out trade between the East African coast and India and the Southeast Asia. Now, what is unique about the Kusi winds is that they were the only force that propelled ships across many miles of the sea to India and back. And the technology for making these ships was quite complicated in those days, and the captains were mainly from East Africa. Now, people usually say that technology is new to Africa, we must import it and so on. Yes, some of the technology definitely is new, modern technology, but we must not forget that Africa was the home of science and technology many years ago, and actually was the center of civilization that propelled the modern world. The whole idea of the Kusi Ideas Festival is kind of a renaissance of new ideas and new thinking about developing Eastern Africa in particular, particularly those countries around Lake Victoria and Africa in general. And so it is an arena for thinking creatively and for innovation and discovery to propel Africa's development in the future.
And such is one thing that should be celebrated, especially, when we're talking matters devolution. I do not know whether the gentlemen would also feel the same, and I would love to hear the take on what they would make of Kisumu County at large, because when we talk about crucial counties in the country, we do not leave Kisumu aside. When we talk about Nairobi, we talk about Machakos, Mombasa, and the likes of Kiambu, we do not leave Kisumu. Generally, do you suppose that such is what should be instigated in different counties in terms of innovation and making the best of devolution?
Yeah, one, I must say that I'm happy for Kisumu. I'm really happy for Kisumu that they have an opportunity to host such an event, big event. And it's good that things are happening within counties. Like today, Kiambu is hosting the World Anti-Corruption Day. Okay. It's in Kiambu. So basically, I'm happy for Kisumu, and I think it's a good thing for devolution. When we take counties, one that will give it an economic boost. There will be a lot of economic activities happening around that event. But I think it's a good thing. I'm happy for Kisumu. Yes.
For sure, the counties need to do far much better in terms of innovation and bringing in some injection of the economy in their counties. I don't think holding World Anti-Corruption Day in Kiambu is really going to make a difference even into the county in terms of reduction corruption, if that is what is meant to be. But Kisumu definitely is very, you remember, not remember, Kisumu County actually borders two other countries. It borders Tanzania, it borders Uganda via the lake, and in some areas even some pieces of land. So it's a unique county that if it well positions itself in that activity and many others, it is not only going to benefit the Kenyan side, but it has the potential to actually tap resources from the neighboring countries,
Right.
which of course it's a good thing for the country at large.
Basically, what I meant was that it's important, like what we're saying in national events, being taken to counties. Basically, what I was simply saying is it's important that we take these events to counties as opposed to what was perceived to be the national government facilities in Nairobi where we would hold national events. I'm saying it's good to allow counties to also host some of these events. I think it's quite healthy for them. That's basically what I meant.
For sure, devolution is good, but it has also devolved corruption. And as it was, I think, as we discussed, okay, we are now not going to discuss COVID, but I'm seeing a situation where come December, over the Christmas, we're also going to devolve the COVID into the
basically that's what I'm saying.
That's what you started by saying, which is very unfortunate. And that brings us to the subject of the health crisis in the country. We first listened to the grievances of medics in Kisumu County, and we loop in Honorable Nyong'o. We get to hear his sentiments on what is happening, especially at this point when the medics have really blamed the devolving of the health sector.
We die to the government, we are a data. But when we die to our family members, they have no replacement for us.
I want to urge the members of the public that as we speak now, we have no clinical officers, we have no nurses in the facilities. And so as you go to those facilities, you must know that I don't know who is going to attend to you. If you have patients in the wards, work as fast as possible and withdraw those patients from the ward.
An ugly scenario in the country on matters health. It is not beautiful in Kisumu County. Honorable Nyong'o.
Well, I think let's be fair, really. If I remember well, the CBA here in Kisumu, all the grievances that the doctors expressed to us, we have done. We have done the promotions of the doctors. They can't deny that. We have met their salaries timelessly. They can't deny that. And if truth be told, we never got any notice from the local union that they were going on strike, because we are their employers here in the county. In the past, they have given strike notices and we responded to them. And this time, anybody who goes on strike without we getting a strike notice, that will definitely be illegal as far as we are concerned in the country. Because all the grievances, all the issues that they've raised, we have dealt with. And if you go to Jaramogi or we go to a teaching a referral hospital, you find that there's really no issue about PPEs. We have enough PPEs in our stores, as far as we know, to last us as long as possible. And when we run out of them, we shall buy some more. So the issue of PPEs is not really an issue in the Kisumu County. So anybody who goes on strike in Kisumu County at this point in time will be individually held responsible for their behavior.
You see, that's quite a good one, but equally a tight one, or so to speak, because, I mean, we have those two individuals, and this was as early or as late as yesterday, you know, coming from medics from that particular direction. And one of the key things that medics have decried about is the fact that, you know, even when they're going out there to ask for their rights, it is always, you know, tough measures that are meted upon them. And as you have heard the governor saying that, you know what, they have done what it is that needs to be done. So in the event that any of them decides otherwise, they are going to be dealt with, you know, individually, or so to speak. A good direction to take?
I am not quite sure, because we need to have a conversation. You know, we need to have the doctor sit down with. But I'm impressed with if what the governor is saying is true. Then I'm really impressed with what Kisumu is doing. I will tell you about Kiambu. We are really trying to make sure that we have enough PPEs and all those things. Though there are teething problems within the health sector. And I must say, I had an interview, should have been a couple of days ago, and Governor Nyong'o mentioned a few very important things. One, he mentioned about the delays of exchequers from the national government, which is one of the challenges that the counties have in terms of being able to pay doctors and what have you. And where you find we've a crisis, and now our own source of revenue is not enough to take care of these things. So what we need to do is to have everybody come on board. Let's sit and discuss and iron out these issues. Because this champ testing, and you know, when the governor says that we will hold them responsible, and the doctors on the other end saying we are not going to work, we have not done this, that is not going to help anyone. What we need to do is to sit around a table and discuss these issues and iron them. Because who is suffering? the common mwananchi. As we say, this is my stand and that's your stand. So let's have a conversation and let the national government come in, because they are key players in this thing, and more so when it comes to issues of finances. We are in a crisis, economic crisis. I am telling you, in Kiambu, we still haven't gotten the October exchequer or November exchequer or thereabout. We have a couple of them pending. So that is why we have not paid anybody in the county. The entire staff, including doctors and nurses, nobody has been paid. So who do we blame? Do we blame the county government of Kiambu? No, you don't. You blame bureaucracies and the national government for not releasing these exchequers. I think we need to have a wider conversation around all these issues and see where the problem really is.
And lack of uniformity is one of the main reasons why doctors complain today. For instance, they say it's a whole different affair in Nairobi in comparison to a different county and all that. Maybe one of the reasons why they said probably health couldn't have been devolved in the first place, or maybe they needed to have a health commission, or so to speak. Teachers have a teachers commission. You say you were a teacher once, and really I would want to know whether indeed the Teachers Commission has been able to address the grievances of the teachers, and whether indeed it will be necessary to have a health commission, and if it would address the issues that the health or the medics face today.
I tend to disagree with the medics when it comes to the plight that they are trying to raise right now, because we've had doctor strikes, we've had doctors' notices well before devolution. If that problem has arisen because of devolution, then probably I will look at it from that angle. But for as far as I know, we've always had doctors' grievances, doctor strikes well before devolution. It's a question of county to county. From my Kwale County, Kiswahili tunasema weza kumuua mgala lakini haki yake umpatie. We've not had a problem of doctors striking. I would certainly say for the last 50 years before devolution and the 7 or 8 years or the few years that we've had after devolution, it's now that as a county we can say we at least have 2 ICU beds. I know in Kiambu County you could be having over 300 ICU beds with all the referral hospitals. But as a county, compared to 50 years before devolution and now, we are proud of having 2 ICU.
Honorable Nyong'o, can you come?
No, to me it's a plus. We never had it. We have at least a dialysis machine, one in our county, thanks to devolution.
All right.
So of course, it's a whole variance from one county to a county. But certainly devolving health has also brought some benefits, especially to Kwale County compared to before.
You've witnessed all these phases, Honorable Nyong'o, when health was devolved and when it was not, when different sectors were devolved and when they were not. This is sad to speak, but equally very happy at the same time. Then one would want to ask this: do you suppose that indeed, as most of the medics would have argued, that devolution has been an undoing to the health sector?
No, you see, let me tell you the truth. Most people in the health sector complain about because there is now more accountability on their part. I mean, the government is near them. There are committees in the health centers to which the government listens to in the various health facilities. That close supervision by the county government or the health workers is what is leading to this cry about creating health service commission and all that. But let me tell you, Mujumbe is right. I was Minister for Medical Services for 5 years. I was in Parliament for 20 years and extended for 5. And when I was a member of Parliament for Kisumu Rural, let me tell you, there were very, very few dispensaries and health facilities. Between 1993 and 1997, I created 12 new dispensaries and 2 health centers. And that is just by being a member of Parliament, and really that was necessary to have facilities in the county. Now in the constituency, with devolution, by the way, a lot has happened, especially since I became governor. I will tell you, these are the things I never saw when I was in Parliament for all those 20 years, with the national government looking after health in the rural areas. I would even say, I would go further, and I would say even in the area of education up to high school should really be in the hands of the county. In other jurisdictions, such education facilities are in the hands of the devolved government. In Nigeria, in the hands of the states. In the US, in the hands of the states. You see, So we are far from fulfilling the mission of devolution in this country. And the problems that we are facing in the health sector is precisely because there's a lot of responsibility in the health sector. In the county, there will be very little money, as the MP says, MP from Kiambu. And those are the realities to be looked into. If you look at salaries, the thing we have done different in Kisumu County is to make arrangements with the banks so that we borrow money when salaries are late, because we pay for it. We pay the interest that is due. These are kind of sacrifices we have made as a county. So when doctors go on strike in Kisumu County that they have no salaries, I don't understand what they're talking about, because the rest of the county workers are working.
Professor,
and they are getting their. You can't have your cake and eat it at the same time.
Professor, let's broaden this a little bit more and probably ask this. I mean, I think it's in the best interest that the entire country speaks in the same volume in regards to matters health, because so much has been put towards getting Kenyans to access universal healthcare, health coverage for that matter. I mean, how does it make you feel to pride in the fact that you have done so well in your own county, yet we have other counties that are not doing so well? How do we get ourselves to that point where we have, generally on matters health, uniformity, because health is crucial and it is necessary across. I mean, a healthy nation is indeed a nation that is bound to, take good trajectory.
But let's not take health in isolation. Let's not romanticize health.
Yeah.
Health also depends on water. You see, Kenya suffers from what I call unequal development from because of history.
Yeah.
Unequal development because of history. These are the things that we need to do to correct. For example, when we put in the constitution something called equalization fund, equalization fund was supposed to bridge the gap that is created by unequal development. Now, devolution has only been here for 10 years, by the way. Let's not beat ourselves unnecessarily. These 10 years have been years of experience, years of knowing what we need to do to tweak the implementation of the constitution a little bit better. But we cannot throw the baby with that water and say, because the 10 years have been difficult, because we are doing things in a new way as opposed to the past, that we forget about devolution, we forget about devolving health and so on. No, that will not help us. Let's just realize this was a good idea which needs to be implemented, and it must be implemented by correcting those things that have not gone well. For example, if it is a question of exchequer release to the counties to make sure that services are delivered in accordance with Schedule 4 of the Constitution, where functions are divided between the national government and counties, and that same constitution says that resources should follow functions. Let resources should follow functions as a matter of principle so that devolution can work. Okay. But if you go around trying to tweak health here, water there, and so on, you're not going to get it right. I know for certain that without good water system, preventive healthcare and community healthcare will not be done properly. So there are other things that affect health that must also be done, which have been put in the hands of the counties. Food production, for example. Right. Okay. Basic education, for example, ECDs. That's very important for children's health, and water. So I would say that these things are interconnected, and isolating health in a romantic way and say let's solve that, it's not going to help us.
Okay. All right, well, as we drop that one on matters health, I think we're talking devolution and we couple it up with, its progress. So we say it's work in progress, 10 years into it. We still sometimes say that even at the stage of inception, you're able to see whether something is a beautiful thing and is bound to be a beautiful thing in future. So in the event that it does not go right, sometimes you put question marks and you decide whether you proceed with it or you drop it. I mean, such has informed the conversation of the BBI at this particular time, where others argue that it looks like it's a beautiful thing, we should proceed with it, but others have argued otherwise in regards to the same. As we talk matters devolution and maybe close on this aspect of health and all that, in making the best of devolution, as Professor would say, do you suppose then that the BBI is equally coming in handy to ensure that devolution is indeed strengthened?
One, let me appreciate Professor Nyong'o for calling me an MP, so you could be speaking to my future.
But you are in your own capacity, in your own government, that is a book out.
But let me say this, devolution is the best thing that has ever happened to this country. That's what I must tell you. And one thing I must confess is that there's so many things that we see today in terms of development, courtesy of devolution.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing. We've had equal number of challenges, which we keep improving every single day, registratively and all those things. The only thing that government needs to do is to look at issues of bureaucracy in terms of requisition. When you requisition, the amount of time it takes. So we're improving by day, and that is why even county governments are making legislation towards enhancing devolution. For example, like in Kiambu, when you talk of the health sector, as opposed to the normal way where hospitals will get money out of what the services they offer, and then that money goes to the county exchequer. So by the time you requisition that in an event that the hospital needs to procure something, it becomes a problem. We have formed legislation that allows now hospitals to remain with the money. So basically it becomes very simple for them to procure. So as we get these teething problems, with time we do registrations that improves, service delivery. So I would say devolution is the best thing. We only need to keep improving. And as Professor Nyong'o says, the other thing we need to make sure is that money follows functions. And therefore, it is important that it's good that BBI is proposing about 35%. Mm-hmm. That does not legitimize BBI because that doesn't need BBI for in any way. But it's important that if we will have a BBI, which I do not agree that it's a priority right now, but let's look at how we would strengthen a devolution by having more money follow functions. And then we also need to break down on government bureaucracies, because look at it now. We are proposing to have 35% taken to counties. We normally get 15%, right, which becomes difficult for counties to absorb every year. That's why you hear Kiambu has returned, I don't know how many, 600 million to. Why? Because the exchequer releases, you look at a government has a crafty way of releasing an exchequer on the last day of the financial year. Releases it at around 12 midday and expects you to by 5 in the evening, and there is a problem with this if it's at that point that you need to have absorbed that money. So once we look at bureaucracies and the way government, national government relates with county government in terms of exchequers, in terms of the procurement processes, we have very serious problems with the control of budget, approving some of these requisitions that we have. So once we address those small issues, I think we'll be home.
All right, yes. We are talking of a country that collects, around 1.something billion, trillion, in terms of revenue and all that. And we are talking of a country that has a 3.something trillion of a budget. So we cannot even be able to sustain our very own budget. That means we run into debt and all that. Well, questions of accountability and graft, like we have talked about. Just how then can we get to strengthen devolution even more to a point where there will be collection and proper collection of revenue from that point, such that it will be devolution that will be funding the national government?
Let me first pick it from what Professor Stat had actually mentioned about the issue of marginalization. In terms of marginalization, BBI is the solution. Okay. In terms of tackling marginalization, this constitution, the devolved system of government, is the silver bullet. Why? My colleague here from Kiambu, I stand to be corrected. Kiambu as a county, if I'm not mistaken, has 5 referral hospitals, isn't it? Or level 5 and above as a county.
Yes.
In my county, we don't have even one.
Right.
We got independence on the same day. We've never had war in Kwale County, so that we say we bombed them.
Right.
You see, even the few things we hear about MRC and whatever, they have nothing to do with hospitals.
Okay.
But we've never, up to now, we don't have even one. So when we talk about devolution, and especially the BBI, which now extends the equalization fund for 30 more years. Remember, it had elapsed. And even before it elapsed, in Parliament, we always had problems with our colleagues from Mount Kenya, so to speak, that we don't need equalization fund. And yet, I wish Mtembe, Kenya, you know what you are talking about in Kwale County. And probably even Kwale County could be better than Turkana County and Mandera County. And we are all in the same country. And yet we say we don't need BBI. This is selfish, it's ungodly. Na kama kuna pasta, atuombee na masheke pia atuombee. Ili watu wawe na Roho Mtakatifu, sio Roho Mtakatifu. Let me finish. It is also very ironical for an MCA who is to tell people that we don't need a constitutional amendment to raise the allocation from 15% to 35%. Why? Because they say 15 is minimum. So they can as well do 50. So they can as well do 40.
But they also argue that 15 has not been disbursed.
But for planning purposes, for planning purposes, surely, Will you
need
plan
to
with
have-
a figure which you are not sure whether next year it will be 30, 20,
Okay.
because it only needs to be above 15. So the threshold of 35% to me should be so critical to the counties in terms of planning purposes. Well, whether it will come on time now, that is the next step, and that now doesn't have to be a constitutional amendment. That I think is legislative.
BBI comes
You
with a
see.
raft of so many good proposals. We do not dispute that. What
You
we're
see.
simply saying is,
Yeah.
because we're in an economic crisis where we have very little money, and there are so many things we need to do, and also like in the health department. What you're saying is we can minimize in terms of spending by agreeing on most of the issues. Because once we're in agreement, in both, and I'm glad there are discussions that are going on. I am privy to that information, not because of the dailies or another view. I am sure there are members of parliament who are spending quite many hours trying to agree on some of these things. So we agree. Probably by Friday there could be some agreements around the contentious issues. Once we agree, then we will not spend much.
Which are these contentious issues?
Let me allow me to finish. I am saying there's a raft of so many good things. And remember,
which are these contentious issues?
Remember, I will pick them out. Pick them out. But remember, when we started with when we went to Bomas and the document that emanated from Bomas, and we had discussions around it. We said there's a problem here, there's a problem. They agreed. And I made some of those things. We're simply saying this thing, let's largely agree and spend less, as opposed to having a yes no campaign that is going to spend so much and we have so many problems.
You see, the problems that we are in now, the economic crisis that we are in now, this is not the first time to be in that economic crisis. And I don't think the previous one...
We've never had a pandemic.
Yeah, during Moist, in fact, that's where I'm going. During Moist time, when we had such a similar economic crisis, the MFA, restructuring, and all that, we didn't have a pandemic.
Okay.
So this is a question of leadership. It totally has nothing to do with the issue of the pandemic.
Okay.
And what is the best time now to correct that is, remember, when we passed the 2010 constitutions, we all agreed it's not perfect.
Yes.
It will need refining.
Right.
Now we're
getting to the point of refining.
We've come to the point of refining. Unfortunately, those who said it was not perfect, now they are saying no, let it remain as it is. So you sometimes even wonder what is the intention.
But are they saying that it should remain as it is, or they're saying that they probably need? Okay, well, there are a few of them who say
that's why
that
I'm waiting for his contentious clauses that he wants refined. I have no problem. Remember, even from the bombers, the NGCDF, which is so critical to this country in terms of addressing marginalization. You know, it takes some equal amount of money to all the counties equally, which is, of course, not very fair. You cannot compare my constituency in terms of the education needs and a constituency in Thika here.
But the problem has been on the aspect of accountability.
So far, so good.
Yes.
That at least it reaches. Previously, before NGCDF, nothing would reach.
Yeah.
So now it is entrenched in the constitution. That is a very good thing. So I'm not opposed to refining it, but I'm opposed to the idea that we cannot now do the amendments because we're in a crisis, because we're in a pandemic. I don't think that, to me, really holds water. We've been suffering marginalization. We've been suffering the historical injustices in land. This BBI Article 68, if I'm not mistaken, talks about now revisiting those issues. You see, I believe maybe Mheshimiwa doesn't have such problems
injustices,
in Kiambu.
we've talked about TDRC,
I don't think he has those problems. That is why he's saying we don't need it now. but I needed that amendment yesterday. My people are suffering. I have 6 petitions in parliament on land issues. You see, he doesn't have any, I suppose. That's why he's saying it can wait. People are going to kill each other on land matters. Do we need to wait for people to kill each other? No, we should need to come over this.
To some of us who get limited money, and like him probably is in parliament, he gets a lot of money. So the little that I get, I try to share out amongst the needs of my house, And there are so many, my kids will come with a raft of very good proposals of what we should do. They will say fancy things like they would want to go for holiday and what have you. But I look at priorities. I look at now, this is the amount of money I have. What do I need to do now and what can wait? We are simply saying that we have a lot of crises that we need to deal here, economic crisis. And BBI, these proposals are good. As we agree and as we talk, let's hold it fast so that we deal with an immediate problem that is here. And we have limited, and we have limited resources. That's simply what we're saying. I mean, it's not too hard to understand. But
how best can we deal with COVID at this point? How much of tangible proposals have been placed towards dealing with COVID-19 that guarantee Kenyans that indeed we will come out of this crisis with great resolutions towards addressing the ramifications that would have landed us in more trouble?
You know, for example, to caution people, you know, in terms of, we need to look at the mess that COVID has done.
Yes.
And we need to start addressing these issues. So we need to cushion our people and come up with, you know, ways and means and resources to cushion our people. That's where the conversation should be. The conversation should be around improving our hospitals. For example, Leonard, I've been asking you here, what happened to the Big Four? Where did we leave Big Four? And I'm telling you, it's too late in the day for Uhuru to, he needs to pick out one issue and leave a legacy on. And I can assure you, it's not BBI. He, for example, needs to look at the health.
I think
you will still have your time.
Yeah, I still have my time, but please, let's get it right. The first pillar of any nation, of any country is peace, isn't it? Are we going to postpone elections in 2022?
We will
not. The answer is no.
Right.
Every Kenyan wants elections 2022. Do we need a repeat of the previous elections? The answer is again no. So with or without COVID, and I think World Health Organization has said COVID might be with us for quite a long time.
Yes.
Surely, what development can we do without peace?
Okay.
If investors know that in a year's time, in 2 years' time, there will be no peace in Kenya.
With
Kenya,
the differences that
you
we
see.
witnessed today, do you suppose the BBI conversation will guarantee us peace anyway?
Well, it will, in my opinion, because the problem.
Why do you say so?
Yeah, I say so because the troublemakers of this country are the people of Mount Kenya, the people of Rift Valley, and ultimately Nyanza, you know. So me, from a very small tribe, so to speak, and I'm being very candid, 100 years to come, we'll never have a Digo president, that is for sure. But for as long as there is peace, you know, I can eat my muhogo in Kwale, you know. I can do my small business in Kwale. To me, that is very paramount. You will not even go to that hospital if gunshots are all over. And with the BBI crafted, handling the bigger tribes. No, let's face the elephant in the room. This is meant to handle the bigger tribes. But giving peace to the smaller tribes, then I think that is the way to go.
If it's handling the bigger tribes, then probably it should be fair that...
COVID or no COVID, with no peace in this country, I think we've lost everything.
We already experienced...
The day you guys will tell me how BBI will cure someone contesting results and not refusing, you will help me. The day, because we will, in as much as we do all these things, and an individual decides after the next general election that they are not going to accept the results and they are calling people to the streets. Tell me how BBI is going to address that. Because basically, to me, that has been our big problem. That an election has happened, a peaceful election. And results have been announced, but somebody just decides, I am not comfortable with these results, and let's go to the streets.
Right.
How is BBI going to address that? I believe there is a rule of law.
But I've already put it clearly on the table. The people bringing problems in this country are the bigger tribes, you see. The BBI, to me, though it's not meant to be put that way, it has addressed that issue of the bigger tribes.
Okay.
Let's be very candid. And Mheshimiwa, you know that.
It needs to address that to the latter.
Because we are saying definitely the next president will be from a bigger tribe, so he'll have gotten a seat.
Okay.
The main opposition will be from another bigger tribe.
Why should it be an issue of tribe?
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room, and we have to accept that we are tribalistic.
Where the tribes come from, they have had more years to clinch to presidency. Why would you reduce yourself to the... Look at such a good material, for example.
Yes.
Look at Mheshimiwa here.
But that's not even confident.
He can run for any seat in this country. I have...
Will you vote for me?
Of course I will. Of course I will.
You know, you have to be pragmatic as leaders. You know, the moment as leaders will appreciate and talk the truth.
Yes.
Yeah, and walk the talk. We are tribalistic. That is for sure. Let's start from there. We are tribalistic. Definitely our neighbors in Tanzania are far much better. Let's appreciate, you see. So the problem, and I think we need to resign to our fate at some point. But all said and done, peace is number one.
Okay.
Yeah, security is number one. Peace is number one, you see. We've had it all together. The Mount Kenya region, they need a spokesperson, they need this. What is, you discuss this thing. When the next government, Uhuru leaves, what is our take? We'll take off. That is tribalism. And they say it in the openly, and they're very happy to do it. Me, as a Digo, I don't have such...
Mheshimiwa, it breaks our hearts to even hear you say that. But now, what can we do? I mean, why don't we craft documents that are going to root out tribalism in totality?
I think, in my roadmap, let's start with handling the bigger tribes in the BBI first, so that in the next general election, there is no war, there will be peace. And then from there now, maybe 1 or 2 elections, we can now, we'll be revisiting, the BBIs have said the constitution is not cast in stone, all constitution are revised. So that in the next amendment, you cannot do everything at the same time. And that is why in summary, I'll say at no one point will 50 million above Kenyans agree, all of them 100% on NIT will always go for the general. And then now we go
I asked you a question in as far as, from where I sit, I've had experience with elections. I've seen a couple of times, and the very reason why we fight is because after an election, someone just decides someone has stolen from me, and instead of addressing issues in the right way, they just go to the streets.
Okay.
And how are we going to
address? Hold it right there, Mheshimiwa. Let's also involve Honorable Nyong'o on this one, on matters BBI. I know that he's in support of the document, but then again, with all this that people will continue to raise in regards to what has not been incorporated or what amendment should be done in the document, is one question that we'd love to hear what he has to say and what he feels about the dissenting voices and whether indeed we need time for the same. Honorable Nyong'o, the BBI conversation has been on for quite a while right now. What do you make of it, and what do you make of the conversations and the progress that it has taken so far?
Let me begin by saying the following. There's a difference between men and insects, or human beings and insects.
Okay.
The spider has been weaving a very complicated web since the days of Jesus Christ. But the spider continues to weave that web in the same way since then, without any different architecture. Human beings are very different. Human beings are innovative, they discover things, and they change the architecture, what they do, year in, year out, century after century. Now, I think what is important is to read, first of all, the spirit of the BBI. If you look at the document, the blue document called Report of the Steering Committee, October 2020, which contains the proposed proposition of the BBI, including changes in the constitution, legislation proposals, and you go to page 153, which is extremely important because we need to look at the logic of things and not discuss them outside the logic of what we put down. In that page, it said very clearly that over the last 55 years since independence, the people and their leaders have sometimes taken sharply different positions regarding the best road to travel towards the commonly agreed destination. This has led to the lack of a collective approach in the management of public affairs and has fostered feelings of exclusion and ultimately animosity. And that's what my friend Wale is saying. Are we going to continue having feelings of exclusion and animosity at every election, leading to wars and violence and so on? Or can we do something to create an atmosphere whereby when we hold elections, there is no conflict and animosity after it? And I say that a democratic election is an election whereby when the results are out, the loser accepts the results as legitimate while the winner celebrates the victory. Now, this has happened in many jurisdictions for many years, like Great Britain, like Singapore, like Malaysia, India. Now, we ask ourselves, why is it that it happens under these jurisdictions and not here? This is the question the BBI is asking. And if the BBI can fix that, and we can have the next election without me losing baby Pendo in Kisumu County, I think it will be an advancement in our democracy. Other things will be added benefits, but that in itself is very important in this country because we lose 2 years every 5 years because of nothing but elections. And that sets up our development several years. Ask yourself, why was there a smooth election in 1963, the so-called Kenyatta election, and in 2002, the NAC revolution? Why was there a smooth election where the loser accepted the results as legitimate and the winner celebrated the victory? Why? If you look at those two elections, you will find that there was tremendous consensus among Kenyans that they needed to be changed. And that change was arrived at by having an arrangement of non-exclusion in an election. Because both parties understood that the rules of the game were fair to both parties in both 1963 and 2002. And therefore, when the election
Well, we lost you a bit there, but then again, Mheshimiwa, allow us to fix your audio so that we come back to you. But again, we are looking at leaders who are speaking of a scenario where the document can. Kenyans do not want to, the trial and error thing. Kenyans want definite answers that indeed this document is going to come and address the electoral injustices that we've witnessed today. Maybe that's why Honorable Ikonya is still asking, is it really a guarantee that it's going to address all this that we are talking about today? This document seems to be highlighting some of these issues, and such also are numerous issues that have been highlighted on the 2010 Constitution, which we all celebrate, but there's been lack of goodwill in implementing the same. Then what will guarantee us that come BBI, the amendments that are going to be incorporated in this particular document, again, will be implemented?
Certainly, there is no guarantee. But madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Okay.
We've been with the documents, we've been through elections, or we've been seeing the mayhem after every election with the same constitution, with the same format. Certainly, we need to change course. Maybe, it gives hope because now you are changing something. Otherwise, we cannot continue doing the same things the same way and expect a different result. And the different result is an election without contestation, an election without war, an election without disruption. That is all what you are talking about, and that's what Professor is talking about.
All right.
So, to me, let's change tact and see. And as I say, if it doesn't, the Constitution is with us. We are here, we are Kenyans, we'll see what best. But until that point, where we'll now say we've arrived, we are going to have an election, but certainly if we continue with the same route, okay, Mheshimiwa here has been talking about there's the judiciary, but I think we've started from there. We know how the judiciary works. We know there isn't much justice, not only on electoral matters, but in many other matters. So to me, any change that will bring peace in this country is most welcome, and it should have come like yesterday.
What's the rush? So, okay. Well,
yeah, because 2022 is just around the corner. When December, 2022 is just around the corner.
You can listen to...
Unless we are going to postpone the elections.
You can listen to my brother here, and one thing that is very clear that you can be able to get from that conversation is that they are saying the only way that Kenya will have peace, or this country will have peace, is when some people have a fallback plan. That after they lose on what they were intended to get, they can get some other seats at the back, and probably that will bring us peace.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And let me tell you something. What will happen to those people when, for example, they are looking for presidency and they lose? They have an opportunity to get a fallback plan, but they're still saying we need the presidency. This is what has been stolen from us. I think that's a conversation we need to have. Whether this plan is really going to cure that problem, or whether we will accept one day, or rather say one day, that as Kenyans we need to have a way and the people accept results and not contest results. When you lose, you lose. Agree that when you get into any contest, there is a winner and there is a loser. So you're telling me you lose and then you get a fallback plan. Look at what has happened in this country. Someone went to the streets and there was this whole hulabaloo and swearing-ins and whatever and they got some stories by something called the handshake, which made us lose the Big Four agenda, and the country no longer knows where it's going. So I think it's an issue of...
Mheshimiwa, would you have proceeded with the Big Four agenda if there was the Dark Monday every Monday in Nairobi?
Let me ask you.
Let's be very honest. Let's go to the basics.
There are legal mechanisms upon which, going to the street is not in the Constitution.
Yeah, exactly.
There are legal mechanisms of addressing, electoral issues. And why don't you do that? Why do you take us for some shows of some swearing-ins and whatever?
I think that's what Professor has been saying.
Yes. So basically, I'm simply saying, telling you that this country will be cured when people start accepting results as they are. And if you lose, you use the legal mechanism that exists in law to address the issues.
Yes, which is what Mheshimiwa started by saying, that sometimes we have these laws on board, but we do not.
For example, in the next general election, after we do elections and we have all these seats occupied by people, we have the Prime Minister and what have you. And then someone out of the blue decides, I had also run for presidency and I got, for example, 200,000 votes.
So I am not taking it
and I'm calling my people to the streets.
Which is possible. Hold it right there, Mheshimiwa.
Which is possible.
Let's have the last take. Yes, let's have the last take.
Be very realistic. We know the people who can call people on the streets. Certainly not somebody from Kwale. He can't
Only
manage.
right
Certainly
there.
not somebody-
Why?
No, why? We know.
That's an
You know,
interesting
why
are you
can't
demeaning your people?
No,
No, I'm not
listen into-
demeaning. We know the people who can call.
Honorable Nyong'o, you can listen
And
to
since
what it
the
is that
handshake,
the
there have
gentlemen are
been no,
talking about.
riots.
Yeah, let's allow him
The answer
to
is
give
no.
his
Yeah.
sentiments also because of the best interest of the network issues that could be here. And Nyong'o, we would love to hear your last take on this particular one, and also what is likely to play out in Governor Mike Sonko's impeachment proceedings. This is something that we're all learning from, especially on the aspect of leadership at the level of the counties. Of course, process on matters devolution. You're a governor, and the process that have been ongoing, not just for Sonko but other governors. We'd love to hear what you have to say and what you suppose would be the best processes for such conversations.
Before I talk about Sonko, I'd like to request my friend from Kiambu.
Yes.
When he goes back, he should answer my question. Why do you think that the election 1963 were peaceful and the year 2002 were also peaceful? If he can answer that question, then he will not cheat in the debate that we're having now. But I really think that the way he is handling it is not really very useful to this kind of debate. And secondly, it's very important to read the BBI report thoroughly.
Yeah.
And see the connections between the various aspects of it before we make certain wild and very sweeping statements about it. I mean, science requires evidence. I think we are involved in a scientific discussion here and should have very good evidence for what we say. Regarding Governor Sonko, well, look, the issue is before the Senate.
Yes.
And as a member of the Council of Governors, I respect the Senate's role in settling this issue, and I would not like to comment about it at that point in time. But let us say that there have been problems in the city county of Nairobi for quite some time. One, because the city county of Nairobi is not like the county of Kisumu, which is a county with a city. The city county of Nairobi means that you're having a much more difficult problem in managing people and resources. Nairobi handles about 58% of the country's GDP,
yeah.
and that's not something simple to deal with. And in terms of social infrastructure, it is very complicated because some of the problems in Nairobi date back to colonial times in terms of segregation of the use of urban space. And if you look at the conflict in the county assembly in Nairobi, they have been based really on two problems. One, resource use and the use of urban space. Because when you live in a city which is disaggregated, but not properly integrated, you'll find that what goes on in City Hall is not known to people who live in Runda or in Kilimani and so on. It's mainly people who live in the informal areas and in the highly populated areas who send most of the MCAs in the city. Therefore, they are bound to see the problems of the city, county, in terms of the problems of where they live, in terms of the problem of their own people. In the meantime, you will not be looking after other issues which affect the rest of the city. And you create a dichotomy in the politics of the city, which, I mean, let's also look at Sonko's problems. I mean, handling this is not easy. It was not easy for Kidero either.
Right.
So I think that Nairobi cannot really be treated as any other county in Kenya, to tell you the truth. Because when I look at Nairobi, yes, I have a city here, but my problem is much easier to deal with than Nairobi, to get quite honest. So I think that the assembly has run into headwinds, the governor has run into headwinds, in problems that really are structurally given and historically given, which really are not that simple. So I hope that the Senate look at these issues, make very wise decision regarding what happened in the city council of Nairobi.
All right, and of course, the city's fate hangs in the balance because the leadership is, crucial, and we have to have a discussion. We do not have a deputy as it stands, and whichever direction the Senate would take will have implications on how we move forward or we forge forward as a city. What do you make of these proceedings? Your expectations of the same, and equally as you respond to Honorable Nyong'o.
I must say, when we talk of Nairobi, I wish there would be a different way of, although there is registration and there is what it provides, I wish there was a different way of doing it. I wish there was a person who would bring everyone to the table and have a discussion, because we are about an year into an election. So if you plunge Nairobi, for example, back into a gubernatorial campaign, you know, in the middle of a crisis, and you see, it's really not healthy. So I think there is what you call evidence, there's different forms of evidence, but I think I would wish that the senators would find it, would look at Nairobi first, you know, would look at the plight of Nairobi and the different needs of Nairobi, because Nairobi, we're saying, is unique by virtue of there is no deputy. So we are saying we will have the speaker sitting for 60 days in an event that they uphold that decision, and then there's going to be an election. I mean, that is not really healthy for this country. So I would wish there is a person who would speak sense into Sonko, because again, you cannot keep bringing in in terms of signing crucial documents like the appropriations bill and what have you. I would wish anyone would talk sense, but what I would add, Senate, I am not speaking for Sonko, but I would wish they vindicate him and allow Nairobi to move. And then I would wish that some sense gets into Sonko and know that this is a capital city, everyone is looking at it, and we need to move. So I wish there was a way we would talk into, everybody would come on board and talk and agree on how to move forward. Otherwise, getting into an election in Nairobi at this point in time, I don't think it's the healthiest thing to do. Yes.
Nyong'o had some questions for you. Briefly, you can respond to him.
I don't think he can actually answer that question. You know,
are you saying I'm incapacitated to do that?
You are not incapacitated.
Would you probably be saying that?
No.
Certainly not.
But you know, in politics, we have something called ushabiki. I don't know whether you guys understand some bit of Kiswahili.
We do.
Ushabiki is like, it started in football initially, where somebody supports a team and is so passionate about that team, imefunga, yeye bado timu yake ni hiyo, without really a specific reason. Now, unfortunately, that has crept into politics, where now we have ushabiki also in politics. Somebody takes a position for no specific reason. You know, I've been challenging my colleague here since we started. Can you mention the specific issues that you want addressed in BBI?
Right.
He goes to COVID, you know. And we've said COVID might be here with us for the next 10 years. Do we need to wait for the people of Kwale to have their land injustices handled? Certainly not. So, certainly we need specific issues. If you were to ask me, why do I support BBI? 4 things. 1, more funds to the counties, unfortunately, where my colleague belongs, but he says no. Okay. He does not need those funds. I hope the Kiambu people are listening. 2, the NGCDF being entrenched into the constitution. Remember,
right,
it stands suspended right now through cases, and yet those are the funds that I will use now to handle the education sector, social distancing and all that come January when schools are opened. It stands suspended through a court of law. Now it will be in the constitution. 3, the issue of marginalization, the equalization fund being taken again on board to address the historical injustice. And last but not the least, the issue of the land issues, the historical injustices again. Remember, the current NLC do not have the powers to revoke those titles acquired fraudulently, illegally, absentee land laws. It doesn't have. It restates that back now, which of course it's a reprieve for us. So me, I'm supporting BBI on specific issues. Sio kwa sababu ushabiki kwamba I belong to this region or I'm behind this person or no. And I believe whoever now is against those specific issues, forget about the issues even about prime ministers and deputies and whatever. They bring peace, as I've said. That's what
we go for. All right, the discussion of BBI
deal with specific issues in the BBI.
Sadly, time is not on our side completely, but the BBI conversation continues.
Yes.
I don't know why you don't want to say anything in 30 seconds about Sonko and what you expect of today's, proceedings. Anything in 30 seconds?
In 30 seconds, I will. It is the right of the Nairobi people to elect the governor that they want, and that's why they elected Sonko in a democratic election. It was not contested generally. There was no tear gas about the natural election. It is also the right of the MCAs of Nairobi County to use their constitutional mandate to impeach a governor. It is within their right. It is also within the right of the Senate to look at those matters. I don't sit in the Senate. Of course, I'm a member of the National Assembly, but I hope they'll also give their verdict objectively.
Right.
Not because of what we sometimes hear that some
I must
things
say-
passed
Which
under
your
the
time is not on our
say
side.
this
That is
as
all
we
what I can
leave,
say
we
about
need
some
to review our laws to this
verdict.
extent. Look, for example, the
Make it 30
MCAs were
seconds.
elected by people.
Right.
The governor was elected by the people. But then we have given the right to the fate of the governor to some people elected by. What I'm simply saying
elected by the
is we
people.
need to have the members of public, for example, come in and bring in their views when the governor is being impeached, as opposed to, because all of them were elected by the same people. But now you leave other elected people to remove another, an elected person without asking those people who.
What was your stand on
these people?
I'm saying, I'm saying,
They insist their governor, they insist their governor.
for example, append the signatures. For example, for legislative issues, we are getting signatures from people. Let's have the people of
You see
a certain
power.
county
Yeah.
also give
It is
their
the
views.
Constitution
I think
that
that would be fair.
directly or indirectly.
Yes, but
so the MCAs of Nairobi County,
Speaks
when
on
they
behalf-
were doing that, they were speaking on behalf of
the
those who
people.
are elected.
All right.
We have to be
Gentlemen,
compromised. It's a small group that can be
time is
compromised.
not on our
We need to
side.
also allow people to weigh in.
We cannot
Time
always
is not-
going back to the people on areas where already the mandate is there.
Honorable Nyong'o, in 30 seconds, parting shots.
On what now? On Sonko?
Yeah, well, generally, just to sum up the conversation,
No,
in general.
I think generally what I'd like to say is really let's get involved in a discussion about BBI and national issues in Kenya in a matter that is constructive, in a matter that is depersonalized, in a matter that takes our historical conditions into account and the needs to have a democratic and developmental nation and a united people.
Thank you so much, Honorable, and that is Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, Peter Anyang' Nyong'o from Kisumu. He is the governor of Kisumu County. It was good having you this morning and looking forward to have more and more conversations that revolve around the issues that are of interest to us as a people. And we also had Honorable Tandaza Kasim Sawa, the Member of Parliament, Matuga, all the way from Kwale. Thank you so much for your time, Mheshimiwa. And lastly, Mheshimiwa Anthony Ikonya, who's the Member of County Assembly, Kiambu Township. It was good having you. It was a great conversation right there, and we'll be having more and more of this right here on Morning Cafe. On that note, we close it and we cross over to a different conversation altogether, matters lifestyle, matters social life, as we expound some more on understanding depression after this break.